Over the course of the past month, I've been releasing my top 80 quarterbacks for the 2021 college football season. Now, making this list was pretty tough, as I had to take into account players that were coming off of injuries, players who transferred, potential quarterback battles, and a whole lot more. Each week, I'm releasing 10 quarterbacks on my list. Last week, we took a look at the quarterbacks I had ranked 41 through 50, which means that this week, we're going to be taking a look at the quarterbacks ranked from 31 through 40. But before we get to today's video, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on those notifications if you're new to the channel. If you love college football content like this, then this is definitely the place for you. Kicking off our list at number 40 is Boise State quarterback Hank Bockmeyer. Injuries have cost him time over his last two seasons, as he's appeared in only 13 games for the Broncos. He started in 2019 as a true freshman, throwing for 1,900 yards with 9 passing touchdowns in only 8 games. In his 5 games last season, he threw for 1,200 yards with 6 passing touchdowns. He's thrown for at least 200 yards in 10 of his 13 games, and has thrown a touchdown pass in 10 of 13 as well. Boise State added transfer quarterback Jack Sears this offseason, but I think Bockmeyer is going to win the starting job. Although he's already been there for 2 seasons, I don't think he's lived up to his full potential yet. There's a reason that many outlets had him as a top 10 quarterback when he came out of high school. Coming up next at number 39, we have Notre Dame quarterback Jack Coan. After 3 seasons at Wisconsin, Coan transferred to Notre Dame this offseason. During his time with the Badgers, he threw for 3,300 yards with 23 passing touchdowns. He started for the Badgers in the Big Ten title game and even the Rose Bowl. We haven't seen him since the 2019 season, so it's been some time. However, when we did see him last, he had a fantastic season. 2 years ago, he completed 70% of his passes for 2,700 yards and 18 touchdowns. Coan had a touchdown pass in 11 games and had at least 2 in 6 games. It's going to be very interesting to see how Notre Dame looks with Ian Book gone, but I think Jack Coan is a very solid replacement. Coming up next on our list at number 38 is a quarterback who might not even win the starting job, LSU quarterback Myles Brennan. We saw him briefly last year before his season was lost due to an injury. He started 3 games for the Tigers, throwing for over 1,100 yards with 11 passing touchdowns. Sure, it was only 3 games, but that's a 12-game pace of 4,500 yards and 44 passing touchdowns. That's not too bad. In his last game of the season against Missouri, he threw for 430 yards with 4 passing touchdowns. Once he got injured, LSU used a couple of different quarterbacks. Max Johnson is going to be his competition this year, as he appeared in 6 games last year for the Tigers, and he put up some pretty good numbers. Now, I wouldn't be shocked if Johnson ends up winning the starting job, but I think Brennan is the better option for LSU in 2021. Again, he was great through the first 3 games and was on pace for a fantastic season before his injury. Coming in at number 37 is Penn State quarterback Sean Clifford. And I know what you're thinking, and the answer is yes, Sean Clifford is still at Penn State. This is going to be his 4th season with the Nittany Lions. During his time with the team, he's thrown for 4,700 yards with 41 passing touchdowns and has over 700 rushing yards with 8 rushing touchdowns. Clifford is one of 11 Penn State players to ever reach the 5,000 yards of total offense number, and is one of 12 quarterbacks to eclipse 4,000 career passing yards. He sits as the current all-time leader at Penn State with a career passing efficiency rating of 146.8. He's second all-time in Penn State history in completion percentage, 4th in touchdown percentage, 5th in passing touchdowns, 11th in passing yards, and 11th in completions. Among Penn State quarterbacks, he's 3rd all-time in rushing yards and tied for 8th in rushing touchdowns. He's also 7th all-time in program history in total career yards, and 8th in total touchdowns responsible for. With another solid year under his belt for the Nittany Lions, he's going to be at the top of almost every category when he leaves Penn State. Coming in at number 36 is one of the best true freshman quarterbacks from last season, Tulane quarterback Michael Pratt. In 9 starts, he threw for 1,800 yards. He had 20 passing touchdowns, which were the most by any true freshman in the country. He also added 8 rushing touchdowns. He had a passing touchdown in every game and had at least 2 in 8. There were 4 games in which he threw for at least 2 passing touchdowns and had at least 1 rushing touchdown as well. If he was able to have these incredible games as a true freshman, just think about what he's going to do in his 2nd year. I don't think he's going to be in the Heisman race or anything like that, but he very well could be putting up numbers never seen by a Tulane quarterback. Also, I think he's going to lead the Green Wave to their first 8-win season since 2002. Up next at number 35 is Louisiana quarterback Levi Lewis. Over his last 2 seasons, the numbers he's put up for the Ragin' Cajuns have been remarkable. He's a large reason why the season was the best in program history last year. Over his last 2 seasons as the starting quarterback, he's thrown for 5,300 yards with 45 passing touchdowns. He's also added more than 500 yards on the ground with 8 rushing touchdowns. In 2020, he threw a touchdown pass in every game and threw at least 2 touchdown passes in 6 games. Last season, he joined Ian Book and Justin Fields as the only 3 quarterbacks to throw for more than 5,000 yards, more than 45 passing touchdowns, with less than 11 interceptions over the last 2 seasons. That's not some bad company to be a part of. Lewis finished the season ranked 3rd in program history in career passing yards and 2nd in school history in career passing touchdowns. He's also one of only 2 quarterbacks in school history to throw for more than 6,000 yards with 50 passing touchdowns in their careers. After the best season in Louisiana program history, I think we can expect some big things from Levi Lewis and the Ragin' Cajuns in 2021. Up next at number 34 on our list is Maryland quarterback Taliyah Tonga. He made 4 starts last season for Maryland and threw for over 1,000 yards with 7 passing touchdowns. Although it was a small sample size, he was 1st in yards per completion, 2nd in passing efficiency, and 3rd in passing yards per game, and 3rd in total offense in the country. He took down Penn State while throwing for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. He became the first Maryland quarterback with 3 first-half passing touchdowns in any conference game in a decade. His 676 passing yards over the last 2 games were the most by a Maryland quarterback in back-to-back wins in 25 years. Against Minnesota, he threw for 400 yards with 3 touchdowns while rushing for another 2 touchdowns and 60 yards. He became only the 3rd Big Ten player in the last 20 seasons with 350 passing yards, 3 passing touchdowns, and 2 rushing touchdowns in a single game. Again, we've only seen him appear in 4 games, but I think he's definitely going to be worth the hype. Up next at number 33, we have Marshall quarterback Grant Wells. Overall, he had one of the strangest seasons I can recall from last year, and Marshall as a team as well. For the season, the redshirt freshman threw for over 2,000 yards with 18 passing touchdowns. Not too bad, but over his final 3 games, he was absolutely awful. He led Marshall to a 7-0 start to begin their season. They were ranked number 15 in the country, and everything was looking great. Through the first 7 games, he had completed at least 68% of his passes in 5 games. He had 16 passing touchdowns and only 4 interceptions. He had a game with 300 yards and 4 touchdown passes, and another game with 340 yards and 5 touchdown passes. But then, something just changed. Over his final 3 games, he threw only 2 touchdown passes with 5 interceptions, and 5 of those interceptions all came in 1 game. After completing 70% of his passes through 7 games, he completed only half of his passes to close out the season. Now, I'm not exactly certain what happened to Marshall over those last 3 games, but I'm going to take a 7-game sample size over a 3-game sample size, and again, he was pretty damn good during the first one. So I'm going to bet on Grant Wells looking like the better quarterback in 2021. Up next at number 32, we have Wisconsin quarterback Graham Mertz. Him and Wisconsin had an up and down 2020 due to all of the COVID issues that they had. Still, when we saw him on the field, he was quite good. He started all 7 games for the Badgers and threw for 1,200 yards with 9 touchdowns. He became the first Wisconsin freshman to start a season opener at quarterback since 1978, and he had quite the debut. He completed 20 of 21 passes for 250 yards and 5 touchdown passes. His 5 touchdown passes tied the single game record in Wisconsin history. He also set the Wisconsin completion percentage as well. To close out the season against Wake Forest, he had a passing touchdown and 2 rushing touchdowns. With a full regular season under his belt, I think that Graham Mertz and Wisconsin are going to be able to do some big things and potentially compete for the Big Ten title. Wrapping up this list today at number 31, we have Minnesota quarterback Tanner Morgan. He was one of the best quarterbacks in the country back in 2019, but his 2020 campaign was a different story. After throwing for 30 touchdowns with 3,200 yards, Morgan threw only 1,400 yards with 7 passing touchdowns in 7 games last season. Minnesota wasn't the same team they were in 2019, and it didn't help that he was without his top weapon Rashad Bateman for some time. He only threw for more than 200 yards in 2 games and had only more than 1 touchdown pass in 1 game. If you were just basing this list on what he did last season, he wouldn't be this high. However, he has a track record of being arguably a top 15 quarterback in the nation when things are clicking for him, so I'm relying on him to go back to that in 2021. Well, that wraps up this portion of my rankings for this video. Was one of the quarterbacks that I mentioned on this rankings too high or too low in your opinion? If so, drop a comment down below and share with me your thoughts. As I mentioned at the beginning of this video, I'm going to be ranking the top 80 quarterbacks for the upcoming season, so stay tuned to see where your favorite quarterback falls on this list. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on those notifications so you're notified when I post my next video. If you love college football content like this, then this is definitely the place for you. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all in my next video.